All right. Well, we're going to have another good show today. We've got a brilliant creative mind. She's an award-winning marketer, diverse background in sports and entertainment. Excited to have her over for a little time here. So thanks for joining me, Elisa.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for inviting me to be on your show. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into it. Tell us a little bit about, how you got your start and kind of your journey along the way.
Sure, absolutely. So I have been in sport and entertainment for 25 plus years. I started my career right off the gate with an NBA team, the New York Knicks. And I started as a marketing assistant, which was great because the person that I worked for literally took me under her wing and taught me everything there was to know about marketing. And after spending a few years there, I had the opportunity to move on to Disney Sports when they opened up Disney's Wide World of Sports a couple of years back. So I had the opportunity to move to Orlando and work on different sports, not just basketball. My time there was very short because after I had been there for a couple months, they decided to do a restructuring and I wasn't ready to give up sports to do theme park marketing. So came back to New Jersey and landed a job at the NBA, working in the events and attractions department, where it was a great opportunity because I got to work with all NBA teams. So that was really cool. And I got to go to lots of cities throughout the country, places like Utah, Seattle, which I probably would have never gone to. So that was really, really exciting. And during my first year at the NBA, I decided to go back to school to get my MBA in marketing because I thought that it was really, really important to have that next level of education just to make me a better marketer. So was with the NBA, had an amazing 5-year run there. Then after I got my MBA, I decided one of the things that was really, really important to me, Andrew, was to have a diversified background. I wanted to be a marketer where I can have a conversation about any vertical in marketing. So decided to go work on the media side, took a job at Nickelodeon, really understood the media, the television side, learned about programming. And from Nickelodeon, I went on to HBO Sports and learned about boxing, learned about multicultural marketing, learned about, okay, how are you gonna get someone to click a button and pay $49.99 for a pay-per-view fight? So that was really, really exciting. And at that time, and I don't want to date myself, but mobile phones started to bubble up. So it was like, okay, you know what, how am I going to immerse myself and continue to diversify my background and learn about mobile and technology? So I had the opportunity to go work for AT&T and really understand the mobile marketing, understand retail marketing, and really understand the third screen, right? Because you had the television, the computer, and now this mobile screen. So I spent 2.5 years at AT&T, amazing run, and I led the marketing efforts to open up the first company-owned store in Chinatown, New York for AT&T, which was a huge, huge deal. So understood, that landscape. And then I got a call from a recruiter that they were looking to fill a position with the Nets for an arena that they were going to be opening up in Brooklyn. So I was like, oh, okay, and it was very interesting because the recruiter said to me, the reason that we think that you're a good candidate is because you have a diversified background and you're going to bring something different to the team. So I was like, okay, so I'm on track.
That worked. Yay.
Right. So took a job, started with the Nets in November of 2010. And ironically enough, when I went on the interview, they were interviewing for the marketing position on the arena side. And it just so happened, I interviewed on a Friday. And that Monday, the director of marketing for the team had resigned. So I left the interview and I called the recruiter. I said, listen, I don't know if you know this, but the team, the director of marketing for the team resigned. That's the job that I really want. So anyway, long story short, I joined the Nets in November of 2010. and I had an amazing run there. I was there for 7 years and worked on the team side. I started 18 months before the move to Brooklyn. So did the move to Brooklyn, and we'll talk about that whole process in a little bit, but had an amazing run. I worked not only on the Nets, I eventually took over marketing for Barclays Center. When the Islanders came over from Nassau, I led the marketing efforts for that, and then also helped launch the Long Island Nets, which was the G League team for the Nets. I then, I got a call from Apple, and they were looking to fill a position. And similar to when Disney called, it was just like, okay, well, if Apple's calling, you answer. So made the decision to leave Brooklyn and moved to Cupertino and accepted a position as head of product launch for Apple. And I was only there for a few months because after I was there for a month, September 19, 2017, Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. So my life completely turned upside down, and I won't go into those details, but for very personal reasons, I came back to New York. I took a job at Howard Hughes in the city and started working on, they were launching a rooftop venue, and they were opening up a multi-use complex. So it was going to be restaurants, it was going to be a venue, shops. So worked on that for a few months, and then I had a colleague from AT&T who came down and saw the project and said to me, he's like, Elisa, would you ever relocate again? And I said to him, I will only relocate if it gets me closer to Puerto Rico. So he said, I know the gentleman who was just named the president of the Miami Marlins. He's like, do you mind if I make an intro? So he made an intro. Long story short, in June of 2018, I accepted a job with the Miami Marlins as SVP of marketing and community relations at the time, and was there for almost 2 years, led the rebrand of that team, which was an incredible experience. Love Miami. I mean, just love that city. And after working, no one warned me about the schedule in baseball. I mean, it's just like game after games after games.
It never ends.
Yeah, I'm like, this is way too much. So anyway, long story short, I decided to come back to New York, and I accepted a position at the beginning of, actually in February of this year, at Roc Nation, and was reunited with my former CEO from the Nets. And I took a position as Senior Vice President of Creative Strategy and Partnership Marketing. And unfortunately, like so many other people, I was put on furlough 8 weeks into my job. So I'm going on 5 months now of being on furlough. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, this 2020. It's just like, it's been tough.
Crazy. Yeah, it's unpredictable and nuts. But I like to go back to where you started. You were with the Knicks. The Knicks were my team.
Yeah.
In the 90s. I don't consider myself having a team now, but I was like high school and then out of school at that time. So I was a big John Starks fan.
Me too.
My favorite player. So I had a Starks jersey, and so that's cool. I used to go up there as a kid. My aunt lived in New York City, so I would always go up to Knicks games. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah. It was, I was there during the glory days, and it was an incredible run. And I have so many fond memories of that job. And I remember being in Houston when the Knicks were playing the Rockets during the finals, and John Stark shot 2 for 18. It was such a devastating loss. It was awful. However, I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to have that experience.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. So why sports?
So it's interesting. I think I'll answer why marketing first, and then I'll answer why sports. So as part of my undergrad degree, I was required to do an internship, and I was a communications major, and I originally thought that I wanted to do television. I wanted to be the person holding the camera. I love storytelling and I loved telling stories. So I thought, oh, okay, you know what? I could be the behind the scenes of some type of show. So I did an internship at Madison Square Garden Network, and I worked in the programming department. And Andrew, I hated it. It was just like, I'm like, I don't want to work in television. Like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And ironically enough, where I sat next to the ad sales folks and the marketing folks who were doing ad sales for the Knicks and the Rangers. And I was much more interested in what they were doing than what I was doing. And I learned a lot during that internship, don't get me wrong, but it was one of the key lessons of that internship was learning what you didn't want to do. Yeah. So I went back to school and I took a marketing course, and I just fell in love with marketing. I fell in love with the psychological part of marketing, where you're able to tell a story and convince a consumer that they need your product and they need your service. So as part of, again, just learning how to network, I stayed in contact with the HR people who hired me for my internship at the Garden. And after I got my undergraduate degree, there were, back then, not to date myself again, it was called temp work. So I started working in multiple departments at Madison Square Garden. And the first department that I worked in was in boxing. And I was like, wow, I was like, sports is really cool. And then I went from boxing to hockey. I worked at the Rangers, and I was like, okay, sports is my thing. Like, I really want to work in this space. And then I was lucky enough to land an entry-level job with the Knicks.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, but I have this series on Fridays, it's called Free Agent Friday. So it's little interviews with people who've been laid off or whatever with COVID. And a lot of times I ask when they first got into, wanting to work in sports, and it's cool to see the different, answers, but a lot of people didn't even think of sports as a career. It's like you think of just the players or coaches, and kind of just like yourself, you had an internship, and then all of a sudden you're pivoting, and that's the cool thing. I mean, you have to be able to do that, and you want to do something that you're going to enjoy. I mean, that's the one thing I've learned is, follow your passion, and the rest will follow. So
for sure.
So when you went throughout your career, how often did relationships come into play for your advancement? When you went from, let's just say you were with the Knicks, then you went to Walt Disney, and that was a short, stint. But to get back to the NBA, did relationships help that because you were already, in the Knicks, a few years prior?
Well, it's very interesting. The reason that I got the opportunity at Disney was through a relationship for someone. She's still with the NBA. There was a woman who handled player talent relations at the time at the NBA, and she used to come to the Knicks games all the time. And we were very, very friendly. And, when you're young and you're just starting out, you're not focusing on developing relationships or, networking for, that definitely for me wasn't top
the bottom of the list. Yeah.
Right. It was not at the top of the list. Right. I just wanted to go to work, do my job, and do it 100%, give 150% and just learn and learn and learn. Cause I knew eventually, that I wanted to climb up the corporate ladder. So this woman said to me, she's like, look, I know someone down at Disney, they're building this marketing team. She's like, I thought that you would be a great addition to the team. And I was like, okay, sure. I was like, look, I'll put my resume together. And, I gave it to her. So that was the first, it was like, okay, this is really cool that she thought of me. And when I got to Disney, everything, the person that I worked for at Disney was huge on, he was like, the way that you get things done within this company, because it's so big, it's all based on relationships. So it then started to bubble up to the top. But when I think about going from Disney to the NBA, again, back then, the NBA used to publish this little book, and it was like, the NBA directory. And I went through it, and I was like, okay, you know what? I want to work in this department. Let me see who who's the head of that department. And I remember sending a cover letter and a resume. And, when I got a call, I was like, wow, this is great. And I know for a fact that working on the team side helped. But back then, sending cover letters and resumes was a thing. So, I can say that when I got to the NBA, building relationships was then at the forefront, because I was like, okay, you know what? Not only am I going to learn from these people, and really understand their job, which is going to make me a better marketer, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's all about having good relationships. So I will say that, I'll share a story. When I interviewed for the next job, the person that I was interviewing with, he and I went to the same undergrad. I graduated a year ahead of him. And when they called me back for the second interview, the recruiter said to me, she's like, Elisa, why didn't you tell me that, you guys went to the same undergrad? And I said to her, because I didn't want that to be a chip, to help me get the job. I'm like, I wanted to get the job based on my own merit, and not just because we went to the same college. So it's very interesting, because I feel like I'm an admitted workaholic. I'm a workhorse. And my philosophy is that I just wanted to get these opportunities based on my own merit. But then fast forward to the Apple opportunity, it was a colleague from the NBA who I had run into, we had reconnected, and he left the NBA and he went to Apple. And he was like, look, I think you would be great. Do you mind if I recommend you? And I was like, sure. So I think relationships, that's a long-winded way of saying relationships are really, really important. And I think that during this time, Andrew, one of the things that has been really, really key, during this COVID period is, not only reconnecting with your network, but it's also too about paying it forward. And I think that, lending a hand, because there's so many amazing people that are that are free agents right now. And I think that we all have to help each other. So knowing people and, that's not the right word, nurturing those relationships are key, because someone, if you're interviewing for a job and someone says, oh, do you know Andrew? I could say, yeah, I know Andrew. Because that's all how we're all interconnected in this industry. Mm-hmm. So I think that networking and personal relationships are really, really important.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know a lot of times if I am looking to hire somebody and someone I know recommends somebody, or I see that there's a connection and I ask about it, that always, it gives you more comfort, you know, and, as a hiring person. So definitely doesn't hurt. But, I think also, from kind of your path, I mean, just producing, doing a good job at what you do and getting the respect of your peers, because then you have other people like, hey, you know what? She's legit. Let's get her over here or whatever, so, I think the combination of the two, obviously you it's tough if you don't produce anyway, but being able to produce and then build those relationships, because it is a small world in sports and entertainment. I mean, if you don't know the person, you're connected to somebody that does, I'm sure.
Yep, for sure.
And that's the good thing, as long as you do it right.
Yeah.
So like, where was your first, kind of leadership role in marketing, and how did that transition go for you? Like going from being part of the team to leading that department?
Yeah, so I think my first leadership opportunity came when I was actually with the Knicks. And I was given the responsibility to manage what they were called garden service representatives. And that was the team that helped us do the in arena giveaways. So back when I worked with the Knicks, we used to do a lot of giveaways. So we didn't have an internal team to help us give away, 20,000, rally towels. So I was in charge of the part-time team that helped us do the distribution. And I think that was like the first time that it was like, okay, you know what, despite the fact that they were part-timers, they were a pretty big team. So I had to do everything from the scheduling, the payroll, and really get them motivated to do what they were supposed to do. And then fast forward to when I was at HBO, it was really the first time that I had someone reporting directly into me. And it was a marketing assistant, and this person was full-time, and I had to help, guide, okay, what are you working on? What are the priorities? How are we going to get all this work done? So it's really interesting because some people don't like to manage people. I have always found I look at it as an opportunity to not only share knowledge, but also to be a team. And because everyone is different and everyone thinks of things differently. So for me, when I think about managing people and leading people, it's all about, okay, how are we the best collective minds put together, and how do I set everybody up for success? How do I make them better? How do I give them the resources? And I'm not the type of manager and or leader that because I'm the head of the department that I have all the answers, because that's I think being very, very short-sighted. So the gentleman that I worked with at HBO, we were a great team. And then fast forward to when I landed my job at the Nets, that was the first big team that I led. There were 15 people within the department, and that was everyone from the marketing team, the creative team. And it was very interesting because it was like, okay, how do we work collectively? Everyone was so different. How do we work collectively to put forth the best product? And I think that from a leadership perspective, for me, it's about listening, and it's about really knowing. And I know this now. I didn't know. It wasn't my thought process at the time. How do you bring the best out in people and focus on their strengths and not their weaknesses? And that was I learned that along the way, because when I started with the Nets, there were 15 people on the team. Fast forward 7 years later, there were 62 people on the team, and I grew that team. And it was fascinating, like, to see. But at that point, it was like, okay, you know what? We need to get the best out of people, because not everyone's going to think through the same thing. But if you're able to say, this is the goal, this is what your role is within this goal, and you give people clarity, and you outline what they're expected to do, I think it really helps them.
Yeah, I think giving them that direction is huge. But man, that's a lot of people to manage, and especially when you're trying to, develop and then implement, your campaigns. And so that's pretty cool. I've done it at a small level, even, I've owned a small marketing agency, at the max we had 5 people, but, kept it nice and small. And I started that because I was tired of outsourcing with all the teams that I've had. So we said, my wife and I were like, let's just create our own company. We'll hire people that can do what we don't know how to do.
Right.
So that's how it all started. But it's very, very micro. But it worked. It was good. It was fun.
That's great. That's awesome.
I love the creative side. During your career, what is, a campaign or a program maybe that you were part of that you are most proud of?
Oh, well, I have to say, Hello Brooklyn is the campaign that I'm most proud of. And I relish the work that was done for that campaign, and everything from the data that we had, being part of the process of understanding like what we wanted to accomplish, how we were going to really change people's minds in regards to the perception of this team. And we were going from New Jersey to Brooklyn, and literally it's only 13 miles, Andrew, but you would have thought that people thought that we were moving to the UK, because it's like Brooklyn's a whole new world. But learning about Brooklyn, learning about Brooklynites, and it was an amazing experience. And to be part of that team, I think that's at the top of the list. And then the rebrand of Our Colores in Miami was also very, very special. And they're different, and I feel the same in regards to how special they both are. The biggest difference is in Miami, it wasn't, the team has a long history since the franchise launch, where with the Nets, since we were going from New Jersey to Brooklyn, we were almost an expansion team. So it was almost like we had a fresh start. So, and in Miami, just understanding, if I spoke to 15 people gave me the same yet a different opinion of the Marlins. But it was very, very special. And, we were able to, in Miami, we were able to infuse the rebrand into the communities. So in Miami, street art is very, very prevalent. I mean, it's like everywhere you turn, there's these beautiful murals. And as we were thinking about, okay, how are we going to be everywhere when we launched this, we were able to identify 7 key neighborhoods in Miami where we were like, okay, we want to do a mural of the Marlins, and when we launch, they'll be everywhere. So that was really, really special, because I don't think that anyone would be able to replicate that tactic in any other city. So it was really special, and I think that those two would bubble to the top.
Well, that's the other cool thing that you have to really be good at from your standpoint, is identifying the markets, because I mean, sports, the cities, the cultures are different everywhere. So
Yeah.
Identifying that is crucial.
Yeah.
But so when you were with Brooklyn, the Nets, so you were there a little over a year before moved into Brooklyn.
Months. Yep.
So walk me through like that process, because like, on one hand, you still are marketing the Nets in New Jersey, I take it, to hopefully have fans and something. And then you're also trying to prepare for Brooklyn. So kind of walk me through that whole like process.
Yeah, so it was a very, very interesting process. So we were a tenant at Prudential Center, and it was a lame duck season because everyone knew that the Nets were leaving. So we had our KPIs in regards to, okay, these are the tickets that we need to sell to get people into the arena. And what we did from a sales perspective, we had rules of engagement on how much we could promote Brooklyn at Prudential Center. So from a sales perspective, we started just promoting the premium offerings. So the suites, the courtside seats. So, and then at the same time, our part-time job was, to put together the strategy and the planning to launch Brooklyn, the Nets in Brooklyn. So it was really interesting and I think that this is important to note. When I arrived at the Nets, the logo was already done and the uniform was already done. So I came in, we needed to do the court design, and we needed to figure out, okay, how are we going to launch this? So we worked very, very closely with Adidas, and research was really, really key. Our internal analytics team had done some research, and we knew, Andrew, that only less than 10% of our season ticket holders were going to go from from New Jersey to Brooklyn, right? Despite the fact that it was going to only be 13 miles away, New Jersey folks were not coming to Brooklyn. So that was the reason that was so key for us, was because we thought, okay, how are we going to launch this? We know what we need to achieve. How are we going to get there? So we actually took the mentality and adapted the thought process of, okay, you know what? We're going to launch this like we're an expansion team, right? We're going to start from the bottom up. And our community relations team, at that point, they had like 2 years, I think it was like 2 or 3 years, where they would do like maybe 1 or 2 events in Brooklyn. So they were almost like seeding, okay, the Nets are coming, the Nets are coming, the Nets are coming. So it was great because the community relations team was one step ahead of the marketing team, because they had already started building relationships in Brooklyn. And from our perspective, so we had internal data, and then we had Adidas, who at the time was the league outfitter, had also done research. And we worked in conjunction with them in terms of, okay, you know what, we're working on the court design, and we're working on the court design because, and we're working with Adidas because we need to understand how the uniforms came to be and the thought process there, right? So it's all interconnected, because from a storytelling perspective, it was really, really, really key that the story was aligned and that everything connected. So, when we thought about the launch, and we were going to introduce this, the new logo, the team to Brooklyn, we had research, we had characteristics about what was important to Brooklynites. And one of the things that was really important to us was we didn't want to come into Brooklyn like the big bad NBA. We wanted to come into Brooklyn with the voice from inside the borough. So we knew that we wanted to come in a very humble and authentic way, because you only have one time to make an impression, right? So that's where, the simplicity of Hello Brooklyn is so beautiful, because it was inspired by a Jay-Z song. And it's just, what's the first thing that you say to someone when you meet them? You say hello. So that was a very, very natural fit. And we wanted to be everywhere. We launched on April 31st, and at the time we only had 4 players on the roster. Darren Williams at the time hadn't committed to playing in Brooklyn. So we knew that, okay, we're going to unveil this logo. We don't have a full roster of players. How are we going to get this? How are we going to break through the clutter? So it was really from the ground up. And when we launched, we were everywhere. I mean, we had, from a visual perspective, billboards. I mean, we were everywhere in Brooklyn. And that morning, we actually did these beautiful little books. And we went to the top 5 highly trafficked subway stations, and we handed out these books. So it was, the thought process there was, okay, you know what, let's get the story into Brooklynites, so that they're going to go home and they're going to read this, and they're going to be like, wow, you know what, this is now my new team. So it was a lot of work, but it was amazing. And it's just, I think that from a storytelling perspective, the most important thing was that everything had to interconnect, so that when people heard the story, there was an emotional hook to, okay, you know what, this is now Brooklyn's team.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, that's cool to be part of, that historic, change. And yeah. I've not been to that arena yet. I'd love to get up there at some point, because Man, it's been a while since I've been to New York City. That
Yeah.
only when I went to the Knicks, probably the last time in the 90s that I was actually in New York City. So
Yeah.
I got to get back. My son's never even been there. So
Yeah. So maybe, Andrew, maybe, when sports hopefully comes back sooner rather than later, you go to Barclays Center and you catch a Knicks Nets game,
yeah, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing venue. It's so beautiful. And the experience there, we were all trained by Disney. The staff is still trained by Disney, and it's really about providing a great guest experience.
So when you were with the Nets, and then is that the reason why the Marlins wanted you, is because you had that experience in kind of rebranding or relaunching the Nets, or was it just your other experience that was more important for them?
That's actually a good question, and I don't know how to answer it. I think that it was the overall package. I think that they were looking for someone with a marketing experience, someone who understands, the interest, what goes into selling tickets, especially in a market where, in Miami, you're not competing with the other teams. At least this was my experience.
Mm.
We weren't competing with the Heat, the Dolphins, or the Panthers. We were competing with the Miami lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I think that for them, they wanted someone with a solid marketing experience, and someone who had worked in sport. And I also think, look, in full transparency, I also think that the fact that I'm Latina helps me get, bubble up to the top, because there aren't many people in the sports industry that have my background, my credentials, and are also Latina. So I think that helped too.
So was it the Florida Marlins then before
No.
that rebrand, or because it was Miami for a little while, right?
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
was just more the branding side, and
yeah.
okay.
The visuals, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I love that stadium. I always hear like people in Miami don't like it or something, but it's like, what? Like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
It's clean. It's intimate. I mean, I don't get it, but Miami's a tough market. What do you think? Did you do anything that kind of helped get over that hump at all? I know just Miami in general for sports has been tough. It's been tough to get fans out there. It's been, kind of a struggle. I'm not from there, but I've gone to games. I think the stadium's convenient to get to from at least Orlando. Driving down, it wasn't like I noticed it bad. It didn't seem like it was. I wasn't worried about safety like right around the stadium, so that wasn't a concern. The pricing's the pricing, but I know that there's a million options.
Yep.
For entertainment down there.
And I think so. There's a few things that we did. So I'll talk about what the team did on the business side. One was they reset the pricing so that it was affordable, and the entry price was as low as $10. The team also worked with a concessionaire to develop a menu that was affordable. So you could get a hot dog for $3. You could get a soda, for $3. You could get a beer for $5. So the thought of having, because when you go to a sporting event, food is so integral, right? And such a important part of the experience. So the fact that, the team looked at the food offerings, and look, it was just like, you could get a taste of Miami and you could get pincho, or, you could get ceviche, but you know what, at the end of the day, if you're a family of four, you could get a hot dog for $3. So those were the two things that were really key, as part of the, as we were trying to grow the game of baseball in Miami. And then from a marketing perspective, one of the things that we did was, our whole focus was, okay, we need to drive ticket sales. We need to get people into the ballpark. However, how do we garner the affinity for the brand at a young age? So what we did was, we decided to go from grassroots up. So we decided to sponsor T-ball teams. So in Miami, all kids play, well, not all kids, but a lot of kids play T-ball. And it's like, okay, so let's grab them when they're 5, 6 years old and they're just starting, because our thought process was these are the fans of tomorrow. So our first year, Andrew, our goal was to have 100 teams to be part of our ecosystem. And we exceeded that expectation and that goal, excuse me, and we got 132 teams to sign up.
Nice.
So we provided, the Miami Marlins provided T-shirts, caps, and then the equipment, the T-ball and the ball, to the teams. And what was really great was when the season started for these kids to start playing baseball, was, you know, on occasion I would get a text that would say, oh, I'm on Miami Beach, you know, I'm at the local diner, and a bunch of little kids just came in wearing Miami Marlin t-shirts. So it was these teams, you know, benefited from us providing them equipment at no cost. And from our perspective and a brand perspective, we had these little, you know, thousands of kids running around.
Marketing all over.
Yeah. So it was, you know, it was a great win for all of us. And I think that when I think about what the team has to accomplish, I think that was the step in the right direction, because you were getting these young kids who were just learning how to play the game, and they were representing their local team on their chest. So, and then when they went to, you know, the baseball games, because we provided tickets to them, they then got to see the guys play on the field that had Miami across their chest. So it was an aspirational thing too. So.
Yeah, and those kids, those are the memories that they remember.
Yep.
And that's going to stick with them, and that's where that loyalty, you know, starts coming from. So, no, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Put that down there. So, you've got all, you know, you've kind of had some amazing, you know, positions at amazing times with you know, iconic organizations. So, what's kind of like the dream job?
Well, I think I've already had the dream job, Andrew.
Yeah.
You know, I was fortunate enough to become Chief Marketing Officer for Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment while I was there, and that was like the ultimate goal. And I think that now, as I think to what's next, I think what's important to me is to be part of an organization that, you know, that we're aligned from a values perspective, and that I'm able to lead a team and really help drive the business forward. So it's really interesting, because as driven as I am, as passionate as I am about everything that I do, I've already checked the box of the dream job. So I think that moving forward, you know, leading a team is really, really important to me, and being a contributor and being able to help a company move its business forward. I think like that would be the ideal next job. If I could have those three things, then you know what, then I've hit the jackpot again.
Yeah, I mean, because you've already hit the jackpot a few times. So I mean, it's only a matter of time. I mean, with you know, the experience that you have and what you've been able to build, you know, and just talking to you, you know, I'm going to be watching to see that next opportunity. But you're doing some other stuff to keep busy too right now. What's Kick It by EP?
Yeah, so Kick It by EP was born in April, right after I was furloughed. And again, it was about flipping the narrative. You know, I was, you know, I was like, wow, I can't believe that, you know, like this just happened to me. So how do I flip it around, and how do I pay it forward? So I started this IG live series that happens on Tuesday and Thursdays. It's at 12 o'clock. And it's really a platform to allow women to tell their story. And, you know, in the sports and entertainment industry, specifically on the sports side, it's very male dominated. And I thought to myself, this is a time where we need to lift each other up and be able to tell our stories. So I started, and I thought, oh, let's see how this goes. And it's been amazing. And so the format of the IG series is the guest comes on for 20 minutes. And at the end, the only thing that I ask is that they provide 3 career insights to those watching, because I think that it's a platform not only for people to tell their story, but it's also an inspirational opportunity to inspire other people, because being unemployed and going through what so many people are going through is really, really hard. So if we can impact just one person on a Tuesday and a Thursday, then I feel like I've done my job. So it's been really, really great. I've hosted over 40 chats, and it's just been amazing. And I've gotten a great response, and the community has grown to over 400 plus. So, my vision is to continue to grow it and to just give people the opportunity to tell their stories, and to hopefully, at the end of the day, it's about educating, inspiring, and paying it forward.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, you kind of see, there's a lot of people out there getting creative like that during this time. I mean, I would have never had a podcast before this. I got bored and I was like, let's try to better myself by talking to some smart people and, meet some new people. And then the Free Agent Fridays kind of evolved from that into, helping people. So it's definitely been good. So is your Instagram lives, are they also archived then so people can go back?
Yes. And the handle is at Kick It by EP. So it's very interesting, right? So like the learning curve, I first started doing them and they would just live on the IG stories. And then I was like, I had a guest who was like, oh, can I get a recording of this, of our conversation? And I was like, oh, okay. So I figured it out. But now, like Andrew, now I can edit. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I'm still a rookie, but I can at least edit the videos. So so they go on live, and then I let them, live for a few hours, and then I record them, and then I push out a replay.
Do you put any on YouTube or
Yep.
And then do you do your like a podcast at all? Like, do you put it on any podcast platforms or anything?
No, they're not on a podcast platform. I do load them up onto YouTube, so I have a YouTube channel, but I don't load them up onto any podcast platforms, because I think that what I love about the IG lives is that it's like in the moment, right? It's like you could see our facial expressions, and people are interacting in the comments. So and it's so authentic to the moment. So I've had a few people ask me, well, why don't you just turn that into a podcast? And I'm like, I think I don't know, I like the interaction with the community members, to have it be like live in the moment.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm trying to get to I just got approved on LinkedIn to be live.
Oh, that's awesome.
So now I'm trying to, okay, well, now how do I go live? so that's the next thing. I'm going to start working on that, but that's going to be the next chapter of what I'm doing. So I'm excited. Awesome. But no, I want to thank you for joining me. It was great chatting with you, learning more about, how those things work at the level that you were at. Very excited for you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Andrew. I really, appreciate you reaching out to me, and a shout out to Travis Apple for connecting us.
Thanks, Travis.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. So thank you so much, and I look forward to staying in touch.